Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. If you would like to learn Japanese for work, travel, or simply personal interest, please subscribe to my channel and watch the videos in chronological order. All lessons are written in both English and Japanese, so if you read Japanese, you can follow along reading the hiragana alphabet. If you haven't learned the hiragana yet, you can learn them all in one afternoon by going through lessons 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you're perfectly fine following along using the English transliteration. So let's begin. Hajimemashou. Adjectives or keiyoshi are words that describe nouns. In the Japanese language, there are two kinds of adjectives, the i and na adjectives. In this lesson, we will learn all about the e-adjective, and in the next lesson, we will devote our time to the na adjective. We will learn how to conjugate e-adjectives into the affirmative and negative forms, as well as into their non-past and past tenses. And lastly, we will learn how to use them as simple predicates and as noun descriptors, or what happens when they're put before nouns. Just a quick comparison about i and na adjectives. E-adjectives all end in the hiragana i, which you see in the bracket, and they are considered true adjectives in the Japanese language. In contrast, the na adjectives are called such because they use the hiragana na when they are put before nouns. Many when spelled do not end in the hiragana i, although some may. Linguistically, they are of foreign origin, mainly from the Chinese language, with some from the English language, and they behave grammatically as nouns. This lesson focuses on the e-adjectives. Here are some examples of e-adjectives. Feel free to repeat after me as I speak in Japanese. Atsui. Atsui. It means hot. Takai. Takai. It means expensive or high. Omoshiroi. Omoshiroi. It means interesting. And tanoshii. Tanoshii means fun. The last one, tanoshii, ends with shi. Adjectives that end in shi have something to do with emotion, such as ureshii. Ureshii, meaning happy, or sabishii. Sabishii, meaning sad. The forms you see here are the dictionary forms, meaning these are what you'll find in a Japanese dictionary. Remember, Japanese has only two tenses, non-past and past, and what you see here are the affirmative non-past forms, meaning they cover the present and the future. Let's learn how e-adjectives conjugate into the negative. Once you know the rule, you can conjugate any e-adjective as they're all the same. To conjugate the negative, simply change the last hiragana i to ku and add nai. So atsui becomes atsukunai, which means not hot, and takai becomes takakunai, which means not expensive. Just as a side note, changing the hiragana i to ku forms the adverb of the adjective, so that atsuku means hotly and takaku means expensively. And some more examples. Omoshiroi, which means interesting, becomes omoshirokunai, which means not interesting. One more time. Omoshiroi, omoshirokunai. Another example, tanoshii, which means fun, becomes tanoshikunai, which means not fun. One more time, tanoshii, tanoshikunai. So how are adjectives used? They are used in two ways. The first is as a simple predicate. We're talking about sentences such as, the rose is red, or sushi is delicious. And the second use is they're put before nouns to describe those nouns, such as red rose or delicious sushi. First, let's tackle using e-adjectives as simple predicates. To say that summer is hot, we say natsu wa atsui desu. Natsu wa atsui desu. Natsu means summer. The particle wa indicates topic, natsu wa. So let's talk about the summer. Then it's followed by the simple predicate atsui, which means hot. And then we end the sentence with the verb desu, which means is. Natsu wa atsui desu. Summer is hot. To say that spring is not hot, we say haru wa atsukunai desu. Haru wa atsukunai desu. Haru means spring, and atsukunai means not hot. There is another way to say spring is not hot, and that is to conjugate the nai part, which is actually a verb, meaning not, into its formal form, which is arimasen, so that you say haru wa atsuku arimasen. Haru wa atsuku arimasen. When you use the formal arimasen, then you have no need for des, as there can only be one formal verb ending the sentence. You don't say haru wa atsuku arimasen desu. That would be wrong. For the purpose of this lesson, as we're not yet into verb conjugation, we will stick with the nai form, atsukunai desu. Another example, to say this car is expensive, in Japanese we say kono kuruma wa takai desu. Kono kuruma wa takai desu. To say that car over there is not expensive, in Japanese that is ano kuruma wa takakunai desu. Ano kuruma wa takakunai desu. Again, we use the plain form negative conjugation of the adjective takakunai and then end with the verb desu. Takakunai desu, meaning is not expensive. Now let's look at examples of the second function, putting the adjective before nouns. Hot summer is atsui natsu. Atsui natsu. We put atsui, meaning hot, before natsu, which means summer. The sentence, I don't like hot summers, in Japanese we say atsui natsu wa suki janai desu. Atsui natsu wa suki janai desu. Let's talk about hot summers. I don't like them. Now, if you remember our lesson on likes and dislikes, suki janai is the negative conjugation of the na adjective sukina, which means likable. Now let's use the negative conjugation of atsui as a noun modifier. Atsukunai natsu. Atsukunai natsu, meaning not hot summer, or summer that is not hot. To say, I like summers that are not hot, you'd say, atsukunai natsu ga suki desu. Atsukunai natsu ga suki desu. In essence, we simply put an e-adjective and its negative conjugation in front of a noun to use it. Some more examples. To say interesting book, we say omoshiroi hon. Omoshiroi hon. Omoshiroi means interesting and hon means book. To ask, is Harry Potter an interesting book? In Japanese, that would be Harry Potter wa omoshiroi hon desu ka? Harry Potter wa omoshiroi hon desu ka? To say not expensive car or a car that isn't expensive, that would be takakunai kuruma. Takakunai kuruma. Takakunai means not expensive and kuruma means car. And to say the Toyota is an inexpensive car, in Japanese that would be Toyota wa takakunai kuruma desu. Toyota wa takakunai kuruma desu. I'd like to mention some special e-adjectives. The first is the adjective for good, which is e or yoi. E, yoi. Note that there's only one kanji spelling for both these pronunciations. However, the negative conjugation of both e and yoi is yokunai. Yokunai. There's no such thing as ikunai. It doesn't exist. you say yokunai. There are 3 e-adjectives that behave like nouns when put before nouns, and these are oi, oi, which means many or plenty, tooi, tooi, which means far, and chikai, chikai, which means near. To say many people, we don't say oi hito. Instead, you say oku no hito, oku no hito. Oi becomes oku, then followed by the possessive particle no, which means of the, and then you add the noun, which in this case is hito, oku no hito. Same with tooi. To say faraway town, you don't say tooi machi, but toku no machi, toku no machi. To say nearby store, you don't say chikai mise, but chikaku no mise, chikaku no mise. However, you can use these adjectives as is when using them as simple predicates. We will look at some examples in the next slides. To say the 7-Eleven is near or nearby, we say 7-Eleven wa chikai desu. 7-Eleven wa chikai desu. But to say that the nearby store is a 7-Eleven, we say 近くの店は 7-Eleven です。近くの店は 7-Eleven です。To ask, are there a lot of people or are people many? You say 人が多いですか? 人が多いですか? To say that yes, and many of them are Japanese, you say はい、多くの人が日本人です。はい、多くの人が日本人です。We use 多くの人. We also use the particle ga because it's a question and we want to be specific about people. Adjectives also conjugate into the past tense. Yasui means is cheap. As you already know, not cheap is yasukunai. Yasukunai. These are the non-past tenses of the adjective, which we use for the present and future tenses. To form the past tense of yasui, simply drop the e and replace with katta. Yasukatta means was cheap. And to form the past tense of yasukunai, simply transform nai to nakatta. Yasukunakatta means was not cheap. So once more, yasui, yasukunai, yasukatta, yasukunakatta. Let's look at another example. Samui. Samui means cold to refer to the weather. Past tense is samukatta. Samukatta, which means was cold. The negative conjugation of samui is samukunai. Samukunai, or not cold. And the past tense of samukunai is samukunakatta. Samukunakatta, or was not cold. Let's try using the past tenses within a sentence. To say the car was not cheap, we say 車は安くなかったです。車は安くなかったです。We use the negative past form of the adjective, but our verb remains des, which is non-past. There's another way to say this, which is 車は安くありませんでした。車は安くありませんでした。Which involves conjugating the verb nakatta into its formal form, ありませんでした. But in order to not confuse you, we'll deal with formal forms when I teach verb conjugation in a future lesson. For now, let's stick with 安くなかった. To say the car that was cheap soon became no good, we say 安かった車はすぐダメになった。安かった車はすぐダメになった。安かった車 means cheap car. すぐ means soon. And ダメ is a na adjective meaning no good. By changing the na to ni, we transform ダメな into an adverb, ダメに. In fact, that's how na adjectives turn to adverbs, by changing the na to ni. And then we have the verb natta, which means became. Adverbs answer the question how of the verb. So how did it become? It became no good, or dame ni natta. And lastly, just a quick side note to show you how to convert e-adjectives to adverbs. While adjectives describe nouns, adverbs describe verbs, how an action is done. To convert e-adjectives to adverbs, simply convert the hiragana e at the end of the word to ku. For example, hayai, fast or quick, becomes hayaku, hayaku, quickly. Osoi, meaning slow, becomes osoku, osoku, meaning slowly. Oishii, which means tasty or delicious, becomes oishiku, oishiku, meaning deliciously or tastily. And the adjective for big, which is oki, becomes okiku, okiku, which means bigly. Though we don't say bigly in English, the meaning is to do something big, say to write in big letters, for example. Just for practice, let's conjugate the adjective omoi, which means heavy, into the various tenses and its adverb. So how do you say was heavy? Omokatta, omokatta. How do you say is not heavy? Omokunai, omokunai. And how do you say was not heavy? Omokunakatta, omokunakatta. And the adverb omoku, omoku, which means heavily. And the last one, let's conjugate the adjective mijikai, mijikai, which means short in length. How do you say was short? Mijikakatta, mijikakatta. How do you say is not short? Mijikakunai, mijikakunai. And how do you say was not short? Mijikakunakatta, mijikakunakatta. And the adverb shortly, mijikaku, mijikaku. Let's do some translation practice from English to Japanese using the adjective oishii and the noun sushi. You'll also need to use knowledge you learned from our past lessons, such as on pronouns and how to express likes and dislikes. How do you say sushi is delicious? Sushi wa oishii desu. Sushi wa oishii desu. How do you say sushi is not delicious? Sushi wa oishikunai desu. Sushi wa oishikunai desu. How do you say the sushi was delicious? Sushi wa oishikatta desu. Sushi wa oishikatta desu. How do you say the sushi was not delicious? Sushi wa oishikunakatta desu. Sushi wa oishikunakatta desu. How do you ask, is sushi delicious? Sushi wa oishii desu ka? Sushi wa oishii desu ka? Yes, it's delicious. Hai, oishii desu. Hai, oishii desu. No, it's not delicious. Iie, oishikunai desu. Iie, oishikunai desu. Was the sushi delicious? Sushi wa oishikatta desu ka? Sushi wa oishikatta desu ka? Yes, it was delicious. Hai, oishikatta desu. Hai, oishikatta desu. No, it was not delicious. Iie, oishikunakatta desu. Iie, oishikunakatta desu. I like delicious sushi. Watashi wa oishii sushi ga suki desu. Watashi wa oishii sushi ga suki desu. The watashi wa is optional as it is the default of the speaker. I don't like not delicious sushi. Watashi wa oishikunai sushi ga suki janai desu. Watashi wa oishikunai sushi ga suki janai desu. The watashi wa is optional. If you choose not to say it, then we change the particle ga to wa because Japanese like to hear a wa when the answer is a negative conjugation. Oishikunai sushi wa suki janai desu. I hate not delicious sushi. Watashi wa oishikunai sushi ga kirai desu. Watashi wa oishikunai sushi ga kirai desu. Watashi wa is again optional. Is this sushi delicious? Kono sushi wa oishii desu ka? Kono sushi wa oishii desu ka? Where is the delicious sushi? Oishii sushi wa doko desu ka? Oishii sushi wa doko desu ka? And lastly, please give me delicious sushi. Oishii sushi wo kudasai. Oishii sushi wo kudasai. So to recap, you learned there are two major kinds of adjectives used in the Japanese language, the E-adjectives and the na-adjectives. This lesson focused on the E-adjectives. You learned how to conjugate E-adjectives from the affirmative to the negative and from non-past to their past tenses. You also learned how to use E-adjectives as simple predicates, as well as how to use them as noun descriptors, putting them in front of nouns. In addition to all these, you also learned about the special adjectives such as oi, tooi, and chikai, which behave like nouns when put before nouns. The adjective i or yoi, which means good, conjugates to yokunai for the negative. And finally, you learned how to convert E-adjectives to their adverb forms by turning the last hiragana I to ku. So all you need to do is start growing your vocabulary on E-adjectives. I attach a link below that is great for doing that. And this ends our lesson on E-adjectives. I hope you had fun, and I look forward to having you join me in the next video, which is all about the second type of adjectives, the na-adjectives. If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly on. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. Nihongo no benkyou ni ganbatte kudasai. じゃあ、またね。